The Republican Party is a party of hate. Always was and always will be.
Huh?
At least if you're a Democrat, that's what you believe.
Dude, no they don't. Democrats are the ones with diplomas and degrees, my dude. They passed history class. They knew where the party started and where it's at.
But here's a little fun fact, a little history lesson.
Why am I getting the sneaking suspicion that your fun facts and history lessons are going to have a lot of things in them, none of which will be fun facts or history?
Who was the president that caused the Trail of Tears?
Andrew Jackson.
Andrew Jackson,
Yeah, we know. I said that.
a Democrat.
Really, this is the route you're going. I think you're getting hung up on simple words like Democrat and Republican, of which Andrew Jackson was both, I guess, because his first political party was the Democrat Republicans. That was one party. So it might be easier if you think in terms of conservative and progressive. He was a conservative politician. But yeah, sure, Andrew Jackson was part of the Democrat Republican Party, and then the party splintered over like abolitionism and some other shit. And conservatives, who always coalesce around the biggest asshole in the room, I mean, look at MAGA, they all formed up around Andrew Jackson and formed Jacksonian Democrats. And the liberals or progressives on the left split off into the Whigs and a bunch of other sub-parties because they can never coalesce around anything, and it's like herding fucking cats. But even if you had some point in comparing party ideologies from 200 years ago, like it would have some relevance today, which it doesn't, because once again, the party's fucking switched. You know, we've been over this. This is closed book history. Even the Republican Party has formally acknowledged this. Like, that's not up for discussion. But even if that wasn't the case, you are trying to compare Democrat and Republican Party ideologies using Andrew Jackson, who died almost a decade before the fucking Republican Party was formed.
What about the president who threw Japanese in internment camps?
Yeah, FDR. Everybody fucking knows that, dude. You really think you're telling people shit they don't already know? Like, everybody knows and nobody's defending Japanese internment camps. And a couple things. First off, how are you so bad at this? If I was trying to make this horribly disingenuous argument, which I wouldn't because I'm not a terrible person, I would have went straight to Woodrow Wilson because, you know, I'm smarter than you. Woodrow, one of our worst presidents in history, one of the biggest pieces of shit and most racist people to ever sit in the Oval Office, which is a very high bar. Like, he did the anti-DEI shit before Trump did and fired a bunch of African-American federal workers, and the ones he didn't fire, he put in cages while they were at work. And that's just the start. He locked up people he suspected of being communists with no due process. The list is fucking long. And he was a Democrat. He was a pre-party switch, conservative Democrat, but a Democrat. Like, how incompetent do you have to be to make this shitty of a disingenuous argument and still fuck it up so bad that you miss, like, arguably the best example? But alright, fine, you want to play this game? Sure. FDR put Japanese people in internment camps during a war, and that was bad. Who started the war on drugs that has continued to put millions of black and brown people in prison to this day? Nixon, a Republican. Who privatized the prison system that allowed private corporations to profit off of both our tax dollars and the exploited slave labor of those black and brown people that were put in prison via the war on drugs? Then turned around and increased the criminal penalties for crack cocaine specifically, not regular cocaine or any of those other drugs, crack cocaine specifically, because it was associated with black and brown people and would put more of them in prison. Then after doing that, used the CIA to smuggle crack cocaine in from Central America and sell it to those African American communities to put them in prison, all while using the money to fund a terrorist organization that was trying to overthrow a democratically elected government. Ronald Reagan, a fucking Republican. Who is raiding classrooms and hospitals and people's homes and places of business, rounding up brown people and shipping them off to concentration camps? Donald fucking Trump, the current Republican president of the United States of America. What a fucking joke.
Who was the president that outlawed the KKK?
None of them? Last I checked, the KKK is still a completely legal organization. And don't believe me? Just go to a Trump rally. They're usually there.
Ooh, this is a good one.
Yeah, I bet it's not.
Who was the party that championed for women's rights?
Man, you hang on to them pre-party switch era Democrats any harder, you're gonna suffocate them like your childhood puppy. Could you come up with any examples from, I don't know, the last 80 fucking years? Never mind, that's a rhetorical question, because for the last, like, half century, it's been Republicans who have been trying to take away women's rights to bodily autonomy, and no-fault divorce, and access to health care, you know, trying to criminalize miscarriages, and reduce penalties for rape, you know, just all around not been a great look for Republicans on the women's rights front. Also, Republicans didn't champion women's rights, neither party party did. They all wanted to keep women in their place. In fact, Republican abolitionists actively resisted suffrage because they thought it would take away from their cause of equality for African-American men. Just to rain on your parade a little bit more, though, because it's fun, the 19th Amendment, you know, the one that gave women the right to vote, was passed under Woodrow Wilson.
Did you know Susan B. Anthony was a Republican?
I didn't, probably mostly because, you know, she wasn't. She didn't belong to either party. Now, she certainly probably leaned more Republican, but they did sort of snub her, as I mentioned before, and yeah, she did cast her vote for Ulysses S. Grant illegally, but she never had any official party affiliation and worked with both parties, so her being a Republican is not a fact, or fun, or relevant, because, you know, pre-party switch.
I didn't know that.
I'm not surprised.
You know, in 1964, the Democrats opposed the Civil Rights Act?
Oh, you're gonna close this one out strong, aren't you, Cupcake? It is nice to see you picking a date that's, you know, at least within the last century, though.
It was still able to be passed thanks to House Republicans? Shit, I could do this all day. And of course, the misinformed will deny it and come to my page and leave hateful comments, but I lead with facts. Liberals lead with emotion.
The Civil Rights Act of 1964 was first proposed in a televised address on June 11th, 1963 by John F. Kennedy, a Democrat, and introduced by Emanuel Seller, another Democrat, on June 20th, 1963. It then passed the House on February 10th, 1964 with 153 Democrats voting yay and 136 Republicans voting yay. Then passed to the Senate on June 19th, 1964 with 46 Democrats and 27 Republicans voting yay. Then on July 2nd, 1964, it was signed into law by Lyndon B. Johnson, who was, a Texas Democrat, you disingenuous fuck. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 does not exist without Democrats proposing it, introducing it, passing it, and signing it into law. No ifs, no ands, no buts. Same with the Civil Rights Act of 1968. So I hope you enjoyed my history lesson that had, you know, actual history in it. And I'm gonna leave you with one last fun fact. No matter how far you can slide that boot down your throat without gagging, they are never going to pick you. And even though they come in all colors, shapes, and sizes, tokens all have one thing in common. They all end up getting spent. Do better, bud, because all this shit, it ain't worth the views.